With the Revenant episode, we obviously have a very heavy focus around Stasis, especially with the 3 new exotics for each of the classes having a focus around it as well. If you haven't seen my previous build video, actually go over the new Warlock exotic, the Rime Coat Revenant, and how it improves Bleak Watchers. But in this video, we're going to be checking out the new Hunter exotic helmet, the Mask of Fealty, and it's easily become one of my favorite exotic to use with Stasis Hunter. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. Like I said, the Mask of Fealty is the new exotic Hunter helmet with its perk, Null Factor. Withering Blade hits and bounces create a small stasis crystal and refund a portion of melee energy. Using Withering Blade to shatter crystals or frozen targets releases a spread of Withering Blades. Essentially, anytime a Withering Blade is on the field, whether it's from your melee or when you break those stasis crystals or frozen targets, those count as Withering Blades. You're going to produce those small stasis crystals. And again, they're not as big as they are with the Glacial Grenade or Headstone, for example, on weapons, but it can still be very good for crowd control. Now, going over the subclass, I'm actually going to give you a setup for both the Stasis and Prismatic subclass. Personally, the Stasis subclass benefits from this a whole lot more than Prismatic just because of ability cooldowns and Stasis shards and also the bonuses on the artifact, but I will give you my Prismatic loadout that I like using as well, just in case if you want to go test out for yourself. Under the Stasis subclass, for my abilities, I'm going with Gambler's Dodge. When I dodge near a target, I can get my melee back. For movement, I like Triple Jump, but you can use what you like. For the melee, obviously we need Withering Blade. It's the only melee, and it is what we're going to take advantage of with the exotic helmet. And for your grenade, you do have 2 options here in my opinion. Number 1 being the Dustfield Grenade paired with Touch of Winter. The only reason I'm pairing it with Touch of Winter and using the grenade in the first place is because it does get a bonus, giving it a stasis crystal in the middle, which means I can freeze targets on impact with that one. Now, the one aspect you are going to need is Grim Harvest. Defeating slowed or frozen targets creates stasis shards. These shards grant melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. While Grim Harvest is equipped, picking up stasis shards grants stacks of frost armor. So on top of getting our melee energy back by picking up the shards, we can also gain those stacks of frost armor, which is going to increase our damage resistance. For my fragments, first up, I like Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy, which means we can have the dodge back faster, which means we can have our melees more often. Next, with Whisper of Durance, slow that you apply to targets lasts longer. For those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. That's a plus 10 to strength. I like this one with the Dustfield in particular because if I throw it into a crowd of enemies, I can actually have the Dustfield last a little bit longer than intended just because it slows them down, which is nice. And obviously, that's going to lead into everything else with the aspects and the helmet as well. Next, Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. Obviously, with all the crystals we're going to be creating across the board with the melee and our grenade and, you know, all the shuriken balances from breaking the stasis shards and whatnot, we're basically going to have our grenade recharge uptime infinitely. Next, I really like Whisper of Conduction. So those nearby stasis shards track to your position. It's a plus 10 to resilience and intellect. This is just really good in case you don't want to go out and run to get those stasis shards. They'll automatically track to you. In case you're in a bad position, this can be a really good fragment to have. And then lastly, Whisper of Rime. Your frost armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. So not only does it last longer, we also get frost armor times 8, where normally we'd only have times 5, which means we get more damage resistance. Under Prismatic, I'm going with the Silence and Squall Super. Again, we're sticking with the Stasis theme. For my abilities, I'm using Gambler's Dodge again with Triple Jump, but you can use what you like. For the melee, again, you're going to need Withering Blade to take advantage of the helmet. And then for the grenade, I like Dustfield for the slow, but you can use, I guess, Grapple if you would like. Again, I just like sticking with the Stasis theme to take advantage of the helmet as much as possible. For my aspects, first up, I like using Winter Shroud. So dodging slows nearby targets. Slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration. The main reason I like using this one is because if a target's already slowed down and I dodge near them, it'll automatically freeze them, which means I can hit them with the shuriken, create those stasis crystals, and basically have the advantage of using the helmet. So that's why I end up using Winter Shroud. For your second aspect, I know a lot of people would say Stylus Executioner, which you can totally use, but I personally like using Gunpowder Gamble. So defeat targets with abilities, elemental debuff damage, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. Once it's charged, you can throw out the solar explosive that can be shot midair and also cause an ignition. It can deal a lot of damage and is really good for crowd control, plus can just stop those unstoppable champions as well. For my fragments, first up, I like Facet of Balance. So if I get those rapid light damage final blows, it gives me melee energy, and if I get those rapid darkness damage final blows, it gives me grenade energy. Essentially, I can have my abilities back faster. Next, with Facet of Hope, while you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly, which means we can dodge more and have our shurikens more often. Next, with Facet of Command, freezing or suppressing a target reloads your equipped weapons and increases weapon stability, aim assist, and airborne effectiveness. Defeating frozen or suppressed targets creates a stasis shard or void breach. The main thing with this is being able to create those stasis shards just from freezing targets, so we can take advantage of a couple of things on the artifact. Next, with Facet of Dawn, your powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Powered melee final blows make you and nearby allies radiant. It is a -10 to strength, but having radiant, being able to pop anti-barrier champions, and having some bonus damage is going to work out pretty well here. Next, Facet of Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased. That's a +10 to strength. And then lastly, Facet of Purpose. When you pick up an Orb of Power, it's going to give you a buff depending on what super you're using. And in this case, we're using Silence the Squall, which means we get Frost Armor each time we pick up an Orb of Power. It is a -10 to recovery. For your artifact perks, in the first column, you can use whatever weapon champion mods you like. In the second column, I like using one with Frost. So while I have that Frost Armor, my Stasis weapon gain increased reload speed, stability, and Stasis swords gain increased guard resistance. I also like using Rapid Impact since I will be using a grenade launcher. Dealing damage with the grenade launcher temporarily increases the reload speed of grenade launchers. That's going to be good overall. In the third column, Crystalline Converter is especially good on the Stasis subclass. So when you gather Stasis shards, it's going to stack the Crystalline Converter. Your next powered Stasis melee hit creates Stasis crystals equal to the number of stacks you have. So not only, with Mask of Fealty, we can create those Stasis crystals just by using the Shuriken, we can also create more Stasis crystals just by having Crystalline Converter on and collecting those Stasis shards. Now, personally, I like using Power from Pain. Rapid Final Blows against weakened combatants grants you Devour. And the reason I like using this is because if I have to do a lot of crowd control, having, Rapid Impacts for GLs is good, but pairing that with Concussive Reload, so using a grenade launcher to damage a boss, damage a champ, or break a combatant shield is going to weaken them. If I can get a multi-kill and get Devour, that's great. You don't necessarily have to use Power from Pain. You can use Total Carnage as well to get that temporary damage resistance after you finish a target. That's totally fine as well. The other ones in the fourth column I use is Armor of Aramis. So while I have Frost Armor, taking critical damage from combatants causes you to emit a freezing burst. And then Hail the Storm is a big one here. Shattering Stasis Crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. So not only breaking those Stasis Crystals with the melee, being able to have those extra shurikens, we can also proc even more slow. In the fifth column, Brain Freeze is a big one. So frozen combatants become surrounded by Chilling Fog, which slows combatants that aren't already. Weapons with the Dark Ether origin trait deal more damage to frozen targets. And then lastly, Served Cold. So picking up Stasis Shards now also grants class ability energy. That is the main reason I like this one, because that means I can have the dodge even faster as well. Essentially, you can have some very good ability spam with this build is pretty much what I'm getting at. Now, getting into your weapon options, the cool thing here is that you can honestly use what you like. You're really not tied down to any specific weapon type. Again, I do recommend grenade launchers though to take advantage of the perks with the artifact. But again, with whatever weapons you're using, we're going to make sure to match those up with some of our armor mods, which I will talk about later. But for me personally, I had a lot of fun using double special. First up being the Lost Signal Area Denial Grenade Launcher, paired with the returning exotic sniper rifle, the Icebreaker. There's a reason this thing is really good with this build. And then I just used the new VS Chill Inhibitor Grenade Launcher. Again, this is from the new dungeon as well. As you can see, my Lost Signal is crafted with enhanced auto-loading holster and reverberation, so we have some great crowd control with these extra detonations, plus with the Radiolaria Transposer, having the pull of Radiolarian fluid is good. Plus, whenever I spawn those Stasis Crystals with my melee or my grenades and whatnot, I can launch this into that area and it'll break those crystals as well, so I can gain all the benefits that I previously mentioned with the subclass. With Icebreaker, there is a specific reason I am using it with this build, but going over its perks first, with its intrinsic trait, no backup. Final blows or assist with any other weapon or ability have a chance to create ammo for Icebreaker. Defeating powerful combatants will create multiple rounds. You can only have a maximum of 10 rounds, but if you are using your other weapons and abilities, you're pretty much never going to run out of ammo with this sniper. We also have Corkscrew Rifling with accurized rounds and composite stock. And then its trait, Icebreaker. Defeating a target with a weapon causes them to explode. Precision final blows or shattering a frozen target instead triggers an ignition. So not only can we create a free ignition just by like shooting a frozen target or, shattering them or breaking whatever, if you break a Stasis Crystal, it'll cause that smaller explosion on top of the, shatter from the crystal as well, which is kind of insane. And if you have the Catalyst, this is like the real kicker. Landing a hit on a slowed or frozen target has a chance to return the round to the magazine. And from what I've seen, it is a pretty high chance. So if I throw that Dust Veil Grenade on a boss, for example, I can pretty much just load into them with Icebreaker consistently and not run out of ammo on this thing. And I can hot swap between, my Lost Signal, get a couple shots in with Icebreaker, get some headshots, and then switch to my heavy. And with this dungeon grenade launcher, I lucked out with Cascade Point and Bait and Switch. So having Cascade Point, those final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increase the weapon's rate of fire for a short duration. So I can have bait and switch actually proc very easily with this, you know, using Lost Signal, getting a couple headshots with Icebreaker, and then switching to this grenade launcher, just absolutely unloading on a boss, for example. The DPS is actually kind of insane with this. But there are so many weapons you can use in general. You know, the new Liturgy grenade launcher with Rhyme Stealer giving you Frost Armor pretty much for free. It can also come with Chill Clip as well. If you have a weapon that can come with Headstone, again, that'll work with this build as well. In the energy slot, you know, having another grenade launcher, even the new area denial void one from the dungeon can work out pretty well. Even if you wanted to use the new Vantage Point Pulse, you know, with jolting feedback, you could switch out Power from Pain and put on Trace Evidence to create Ionic Traces so you can get even more ability energy. You know, even using Forbearance in the energy slot as well. Great grenade launcher, obviously. And then any heavy weapon will work. Like I said, the amount of variety for weapons you can use are totally fine. Like I said, we're going to make sure we match those up with what we're using under our armor mods. But before we talk about what mods we're using, let's talk about what stats you want to look for. First up, resilience is always a big one. We talk about every video. Try to have tier 10 100 resilience. It's a 30% damage reduction, which you definitely want. After that, focus on mobility. Mobility is tied to how fast the hunter can get their dodge back. And the higher the stat we have, the faster we can get that dodge back, which means we can have melees more often, and that'll lead into some armor mods as well. After that, you could definitely focus on discipline, which is tied to your grenade cooldown. But after that, intellect potentially. But again, the main two would be resilience and mobility. For the helmet, I'm going with Harmonic Siphon. So those rapid stasis weapon final blows will create orbs of power for me. And since I'm using double special, I got double special ammo finder on. If you're not using double special, I definitely recommend something like heavy ammo finder or even potentially hands-on so you can get super energy from melee kills. On the gauntlets, I'm using double impact induction, so when I cause damage with my melee attack, it reduces my grenade cooldown, and then also heavy-handed, so if I get melee final blows, it'll create an orb of power for me. For my chest piece, I'm using Harmonic Reserve, so I get more ammo for my stasis weapons. Again, I do have a stasis special and a stasis heavy, and icebreaker ammo really isn't dependent on reserve mod, so this is good for me. Like I said, just make sure your reserve mod matches with whatever weapons you're using, and then for resistance mods, you can use what you like depending on the activity. For my boots, I'm using recuperation, so when I pick up an orb of power, it gives me health back, and I'm also using solar and stasis weapon surge. Essentially, those weapon types will gain a small bonus to damage while I have an armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Essentially, when you collect an orb of power, it's going to give you an armor charge, and with this build, you can have a maximum of 3 armor chargers, and with any of these blue mods, it puts a 10-second timer on that armor charge. So, with 3 armor charges, we can have 30 seconds of bonus weapon damage for both our solar and stasis weapons. Make sure that your weapon surges match up with whatever weapons you decide to use. And lastly, for the class item, I like using Reaper. So shortly after using my class ability, if I get a weapon final blow, it'll spawn an orb of power. I also like Powerful Attraction, so automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. So not only does that count toward weapon surges, it also counts for recuperation as well, so I can get health back when I dodge as long as there's orbs nearby. And then lastly, I'm putting on Bomber, so it reduces my grenade cooldown when I use my class ability. I know my first build video of the season was Renewal Grasp for the Hunter, because in my head I was like, hey, you know, we have a stasis season, Renewal Grasp is going to come in clutch, we have Onslaught Salvation, the crowd control is going to be insane. But after using Mask of Fealty, I can safely say this is easily one of the best stasis, you know, centric exotics that we've had since Renewal Grasps. It allows you to take advantage of everything that this stasis subclass offers. Like I said, I personally like using the Dust Field Grenade because considering the amount of stasis crystals you can create with just the melee, hitting a frozen target with the shuriken, breaking a stasis crystal with the shuriken, you're going to have enough crystals on the field anyway that you don't even need the Glacial Grenade, in my opinion. And even though I highly recommend Stasis, the Prismatic subclass just have so many benefits as well. You can take advantage of so many more buffs. You can still gain these Stasis shards, even though not as quickly. You can still get Frost Armor. The ability span with both builds is just absolutely ridiculous. And with how I have my weapon set up personally with Lost Signal and Icebreaker, anytime there's a Stasis Crystal on the field, a slowed or frozen target, I'm pretty much causing ignitions, melting enemies that are in the area denial pool, and anytime there's a boss, I can just, you know, hot swap to the heavy, have Cascade Point and Bait and Switch, just unload on them, and continue to redo that cycle. All in all, I can say that this is easily one of the most fun Hunter builds that I've made in probably almost a year. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Mask of Fealty, Stasis, and Prismatic builds. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the dim link for both of these builds in the description, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using, down to the subclass, the armor mods, the weapons, even the drip if you'd like, it'll include shaders and ornaments as well for that. Copy it and go test out for yourself if there's something that you like using under the subclass, the armor mods, the weapons, anything like that. If there's something you like using, definitely let me know in the comments because I'm testing stuff out in this game all the time. I just fell into using double special. I had way too much fun using Icebreaker and taking advantage of the catalyst, basically having unlimited special ammo the entire time. In any event, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notification so you don't miss out on any other Destiny builds here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube and also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. We will be doing Vesper's host dungeon help. So if you want help with the dungeon, come by stream, hop in the chat, say something. If we're running it, we can definitely help you out. And if you want to be proactive, join my Discord. We're going to have plenty of people looking to run the dungeon. So if you would like help, whether it's from me or somebody in my community, definitely hop in. And lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is technically cheaper. In any event, you do get access to the exclusive emotes, the monthly badges, and other cool stuff here on the channel. Mainly being, you can get access to all of my long form videos early. So if you want to see a new Destiny build early, you can get access to it right away when I post it. So if you want more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and that'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.